Hi everybody, it's Grace. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. One very, very debilitating, difficult experience people have who have any kind of compulsive issues or experiences, really, beyond eating, but absolutely with any kind of behavior, substance, whatever, but often very deeply with food and eating, is the experience of self-criticism, being bitter, violent, like the meanest person you've ever known, wrapped up into one sensation or one kind of entity. It's almost like there's some sort of attack person, that willing to just rip you to shreds. Very, very mean, kind of nasty talk to the self. And I've been hearing it lately as the eating peace process is underway with this group, because it's not unfamiliar and it's certainly not uncommon. People sharing that they have this voice that comes in and will begin speaking almost as if it's saying, like, look what you did. You're such an idiot. You go unconscious when you eat. I can't believe you just did that again. And it'll have this assessment that is so painful. And sometimes it even talks, have you ever heard this? It even talks to you like your whole life is like this. You'll never change. Kind of like the most abusive parent you can imagine ever having. Some kind of, authority type of figure that has zero compassion, zero love, no sense of calm and relaxation at all. No kindness. And, I've looked at that for years within myself and hearing it from other people. Such an interesting experience that the human mind would have a voice like that. And yet we see it in the world, taking place in war and fighting and conflict. It's just sort of, there it is, manifested, the same kinds of voices, wanting to attack or shut down something that you think is threatening, something that you think is going to hurt your very survival, and thinking that the way to handle that is through war or violence. So in this eating peace approach, we're really looking at, where does peace fit in? How can I question those thoughts, look at them and hold them and take them through inquiry? Is it actually true? That kind of voice and feeling, whether it's towards somebody else or yourself, towards the world, towards life, which everybody has at different times. It's really interesting that there's some sort of function in there that just goes to that. That voice is limited. It's very limited. And I find, to believe that voice, to be listening to it or honoring it or responding as if you're the victim of it, which we feel like we are, is sort of giving in as if it's the one in command. And it's certainly what it can feel like when you just feel horrible about yourself, that you made some huge big mistake and you're maybe even panicking that you want to get back to solid ground and make it right. And, it almost feels like an emergency because if somebody else might be criticizing you as much as you are criticizing you. To be in that kind of modality and feeling and the sensations and everything that's all winds up dancing with one another in that kind of warlike feeling is really false. It's actually not the entire truth. It can't be true. It's so uncomfortable. It's not a way to really work with yourself. If that worked, it would have worked by now, Don't you see that? It's like, noticing as you scan your life and see where maybe that voice first ever came in, that you made a mistake and did something wrong. It could be quite old, And here that voice comes in, sort of assessing what you've just done. So in this case, eating. Somebody eats something, and they just felt like they desperately wanted it, and they're willing to move out of what they know is really healthy for them to go eat it. I'm just going to eat it anyway. I don't care. Screw it all. I'm going to eat whatever I want. And then with the bites come guilt and disappointment. Look at me. Here I am doing this again. And then there's something that sort of builds and becomes even bigger. And even when you're done and you're stuffed, like let's say you've just gone on a huge binge, or maybe you just ate something, but you know your body doesn't work well with it, and you've promised yourself you're never going to eat it. Now you have. And then that voice comes in, and it's almost like you feel bad already. Now you're going to feel worse. You know, it's kind of like, just look at you. What's wrong? So people have this kind of voice that enters their life inside the mind about other things besides just eating and food. But as I said, it really used to be extremely violent for me when I binged, when I experienced this yo-yo ride, this roller coaster ride when it came to food and eating. So I thought I'd share with you a way to be with that voice and use self-inquiry to work with it. Because first of all, that thing is not speaking the truth. You already know it. It's not speaking the end-all, be-all, overall, deepest truth about who you are and what's happening in the situation. It also makes it so it clouds over what could be going on that is causing you to reach for the food in the first place, or to eat something that winds up feeling harmful. You don't even get to see that at all. It's like a cloud bank cover. Just it comes in. Here comes the army, you know, attacking. And there's no gentleness, and there's no quiet. There's no peace. There's no slowness. Everything becomes an emergency. And it just kind of, the focus winds up being about survival, or just getting through this and starting a new day tomorrow type of thing. Well, so having that kind of voice, one thing that you can really do with it is the fabulous question, is that true? In the work of Byron Katie. Is what it's telling me true? I find the answer is no, you know, that you're a total failure. Look at you. You're a wreck. You're a mess. Very, depending on where you are with an experience of food and eating, you might feel like the answer is yes. You know, it's speaking the truth. It'll say, you know, you aren't able to do this. You will never change. You aren't capable of overcoming. It's like chattering away, right? I really love sitting with that question. Can you absolutely know that that's true for all time? Who's in charge here? You know, listening to that voice. Do you want to continue to believe in violence and meanness? Is meanness going to really get you to change, to inspire you, motivate you? And is it true that, you know, there's all that attack and viciousness and mean voices and cussing and swearing and just, you're such an idiot kind of a self-talk. And then that same voice is the one that an hour before was saying, oh, come on, eat it. It doesn't matter. Just start eating. Let's go get some food. You know, let's do it. It's kind of got a very childish or, you know, teenagery or some sort of, not that there's anything wrong with teenagers, but you know what I mean. It's sort of like an insecure, bullying kind of approach to life. And it'll just think, you know, it kind of has a philosophy, take what you can while you have, go ahead and steal if you need to, shovel it in because there's not enough. Everything looks dark and cloudy and, you know, sort of a blackness, doomed, difficult being here on planet Earth. Just all looks very hard. So why not go ahead and eat? Doesn't matter, nothing matters. These are the kinds of thoughts that enter your mind that are actually fundamentally important to question. Is that true? Can you absolutely know beyond a shadow of a doubt that what that voice is saying is true from the beginning to the end of a binge or overeating or eating off balance? Is it true? Who would you be without that thought? Who would you be without that story? And as you begin to wonder about that, who would I be? Who am I? Is there another thing in here that's an observer, someone who's aware, maybe even loving and kind? And the answer is yes, there usually is. Someone who is a kind or relaxed or forgiving or open-minded parent, who is also very strong, stronger than that kind of voice that is, freaking out about everything, telling you to eat and then being upset with you that you did eat. There's another observer that is much more wise and kind and supportive, and also very, very strong. Sometimes people miss that everyone has the capacity to see that kind of other way of speaking to yourself, that violence is the thing that motivates change. And this other part of us is like a loving kindness, but great clarity, very strong clarity is what motivates change. And that there's a can do it within any one of us. So from beginning to end of that binge experience, whether you're at the end and you're screaming at yourself for what you just did, or you're at the beginning and it's saying, come on, let's eat. Just to really sit with just taking even a few seconds of slowing down and noticing, is that energy and that feeling inside and that idea coming from the voice that's like the mean parent voice, the one like the dictator voice, the one that's kind of trying to run a prison camp? That same voice will be one that I also recognize, which really into severe dieting, like perfectionism with a diet, just holding tight to that. And if you eat one bite of something off that diet, you're also, here comes the violence, here comes the hateful words towards yourself. Look at you, I can't believe you did that again. So it can be very extreme, and it's just like watching you with, critical eyes. It's just can be really helpful to get to know that critical voice in a way that is recognizing it. Oh, I see you. Thanks. I know you're trying to help. Maybe. I know you're a part of me that's been here, that's a visitor, but it's not the whole, all of you. It never is for anybody. You're not this like mean, nasty person 100% of the time. It isn't the whole entire picture of you. The reason you can even tell that is because you feel so bad about hearing that voice, So let's just, instead of feeling so self-condemning and like there is such evil in the world and I've just joined that force, let's question if that is actually true, that it's possible to be so wrong. Really interesting. Long ago, somebody passed me a little note when I was sharing out of this voice, like I'm so depressed, this is so terrible, so awful, such a bad person. And I was in a 12-step meeting and quite young, and this person passed me a note. I will never know who the person was. I kept it in my wallet for years. It was in this beautiful little flowery writing. And basically the note said that there was a kind of negative grandiosity for being so violent and so depressive with myself. Negative grandiosity. And I thought, wow, quite interesting, quite amazing. Grandiosity. That voice is very grandiose. Have you noticed? It's like I'm the one in charge and I know everything and you are a piece of dung, you know? That was an amazing little shift and turning point that I never, ever, ever forgot. And I'm forever grateful for the person that cared enough to have that note passed around an entire meeting room and circle so that it landed in my hands. And that is what I hope you can find today, is that it's not a voice to really listen to. You know, maybe it's panicked and trying to give you some good ideas about how to manage this crazy thing of eating off balance that feels so awful. But there's a center in you, an observer that is patient and kind and can say, come on, let's just pick yourself right back up again and start over. We don't need to go through hours of punishment and how horrible you've been, that you just lost it. You know, now we're just going to pick ourselves back up again and continue. Who would you be without the story? You know, you've done something evil and wrong. Just believing in evil and some sort of power that comes in that's, I don't know, able to kind of totally overwhelm you. I know it feels like that. You know, it used to feel like that deeply for me, a binge. Like I'm compelled like a zombie to move towards the food. But that is something that you can question, because no one put a gun to my head. I wasn't handcuffed. I wasn't totally controlled. Yes, I'm being controlled by some kind of voice, it feels like, but there's other voices here too. And I can recognize that one that's, you know, you can even name that voice. I've had people that I've worked with for years name that voice. And some people in the disordered eating community have named it ED, ED, for eating disorder. So the beautiful young woman who wrote the book, Jenny, can't remember her last name in the moment, spontaneously here, but you know, that is naming it and just holding it as a separate entity in the mind, because that's what it feels like. It's not the whole entire all of you. And so you can name it, say, oh, it's you. Well, there's another part of you that you could also name. In the eating peace process, we work with a compassionate advisor, your compassionate advisor, who's always with you, the wise one, the one who's here in your heart that you can call on. Give that one a name. That one is way more powerful than that violent one that believes in violence and evil and punishment and guilt and sin and, you know, that you've done things the wrong way. So just something to bring into your life in this inquiry process. Who would you be without the story that you screwed up and deserve something horrible or are never going to get it? Maybe you're always going to get it. You know, turn that thought around. I am capable of getting it. Whatever it is that the line is that you're saying, I am not evil. I am good. I haven't been taken over by something, you know, some sort of dark forces. I can be taken over by peaceful forces, you know, that's my true nature. That's something that's here, alive. It's been with me all along. This observer is very patient, very kind, very willing to stick with you no matter what. Have you noticed it always has so far? So who would you be without the story that you could do anything wrong? You know, you'd move on the gaps between all that terrible punishment that you've done something horrible, or even moving before that when the voice is screaming at you to go eat something. Go eat it, doesn't matter. Who cares about life? Doesn't matter. You might begin to see, is that true? Can I absolutely know that's true? How do I react when I believe life doesn't even matter? I should just, you know, it doesn't matter if I get the thought about eating something, just go eat it. Who would I be without that story? That's a real voice, that voice is helpful. I might listen to it and be aware of it and actually get to know it, be more connected to it, but just like you wouldn't have a toddler telling you what to do, all day long in your life, including around food and eating, you wouldn't take it seriously. You know, you'd say, you again. Thank you for sharing, but I'm okay here. And, just come sit down next to me and be quiet. So just keep trying that on. Whatever the voice is saying, I am unconscious with food. I am never going to get this. Then turn it around. I am conscious with food. I am getting this. And how is that true? So it's not just a positive affirmation you're chanting to yourself that you don't believe. It's just noticing what examples actually support that just as much as the other thing. We'll really believe in that the one that's screaming at us, but we'll think it's true. We'll be acting like that one is saying the truth. So how about, let's just pick ourselves up, continue on, get back to where we know it's working for us with either maybe we've got the way that we eat that we know works well and what we don't eat a lot of, and just whatever your food approach is that feels really good. And you can just be with that, and what the answer is with when you're faced with what works and what doesn't when it comes to food and eating. And we're just going to continue moving with what works. What works. Get back on the horse, not condemning yourself for what you've done. Starting again. Always have a new moment. It's my thinking. The final turnaround with that is my thinking that goes unconscious. I will never get over this food and eating thing. I will never get over my thinking when it comes to food and eating. It's like that, this thought comes in, the critical, berating, violent thinking comes in, but you don't have to believe it. I love how Byron Katie says, as far as any kind of thought process in the mind, you have the thoughts. You either believe them or you question them. There isn't an option like to say, check the little box that says, I don't want to have the thought at all. It's too late. The thought's already here. There seems to be some kind of mechanism inside of us that is interested in saying, you are a huge screw up. And some more violent than others, right? It's just somehow the way the mind works. And so, if you have that, great to question if that one is true. You screwed up. It's just in my thinking. My thinking is screwed up. Not that this is not the truth with the capital T. So let me know how it goes. The best thing I know for working with this is to actually write the words down that you say to yourself, word for word. Write them down. One sentence, like the one I heard just the other day from an eating peace process participant. Said, I went unconscious with food. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? How do I react when I believe that thought? It gets worse. Who would I be without that thought? I went unconscious with food. And then turn it around. I did not go unconscious with food. I went unconscious with my thinking. Food went unconscious with me, if that makes any sense. Just looking at it in all the different turnaround ways that you can. I went unconscious with myself. And you can question any one of those turnarounds that you find to see if they're true or not, if they feel off. All right, let me know how it goes. You have the power to question anything and any of those lies that come in worthy of questioning. Bye-bye.